Welcome to our channel. My name is Nadia from the Nadia and Rob channel, and today is a new day. I also have some new bangs. Maybe a bit too short. I may have cut it a bit too short. Meh. Anyways, today for lunch I will be making dal, which is also in English known as lentils. It's a very generic word, but for us when we say dal, we normally mean Chana Dal, at least in my family. And Chana Dal is like a split chickpea dal. It is of the yellow variety. It's a little bit bigger than the other dals when you look at the actual kernel size, and it's one of my favorites to have out of all the other dals. Each dal has its own properties, not just in size, but the way it tastes, the color that it may impart as it's cooking, and even texture. In this case, I really enjoy the taste and the texture of this particular dal. It does take a while to cook, so we're starting a bit early today. I'm not sure how long it's going to take to cook it because it depends on the harvest and I think it's mainly depending on the harvest. I'm not sure. But I find that at times the dal will cook differently depending on when I've purchased it or how long I've had it for or what company has been manufacturing it. Now I actually soaked it the night before, and the one thing you want to keep in mind is if you're going to be soaking it, which you should definitely be soaking, it'll help soften it a lot faster and cook a lot faster. But also dal is great in fiber and in protein, but because it's high in fiber, it may give some gas to some people. Soaking it the night before, giving it a good wash, and then soaking it will actually help prevent the gas accumulation in your belly, which is a very uncomfortable feeling you don't want to have. So I actually gave it a good wash. I shook it around, massaged it in my fingers till the water was more or less clear. It can be made clearer if you want, but I got it to this point where it's about 95% clear. If you forget to soak it the night before, at least give it 4 hours soaking time, minimum 2 hours. If you're going to do 2 hours soaking time, then I would suggest boiling this first before cooking it. Now, there are different ways of cooking dal. There are ways of either slow cooking it, which is the way I'm going to do it, or pressure cooking it ahead of time with no or very little spices, and then making a fry out of the spices themselves and the aromatics and then adding it afterwards. I like to do more of a slow cooking because then each kernel is infused with the flavor of the flavor base that you'll be making with the aromatics. It just makes it taste so much better. Now in our previous video, we made chicken kadai, and I had mentioned in the video that if you don't want the oil, if it's too much oil that you may have added, skim it off, but save the oil. This is where you'd want to use it. The flavor that's in that oil will help impart even more depth of flavor into the dal. I didn't save any because I actually didn't have that much oil in the dish, but we're still going to create a base that'll help create a delicious tastiness to this dish. Okay, let's get started. Let's start chopping up some onions. But first, I want to get my vessel that I want to cook it in. And Rob got me a beautiful birthday present this year from a company called Soy for their soy pans, and I think that'll be the perfect dish to cook it in. This is the pan that he got me. It's a beautiful pan with a tin lining. You can have the option of silver lining as well, but I'm glad that Rob got it with the tin lining. And we're just gonna, they indicate that there's no seasoning involved. What you do is like you do with a wok. You heat it up first, lightly coat it with oil, let it become hot, and then add more oil and start cooking. That gives it that non-stick quality, so that's what we're gonna do. It's my first time using this pan. I'm actually very excited. I need to pull out some green chilies from the freezer. It's good to keep a big bag of chilies in the freezer. I have a variety. I have some, this is not jalapenos. It's not jalapenos, I forget what these are called. But I have shishito peppers in there, and then I have a combination of red bird's eye chilies and green ones. And I think we'll use 2 of the green ones. Now what's nice about this dish is that if you don't want it too spicy, you can add 1 or 2 green chilies. Again, we're gonna add it near the beginning, so it helps temper down the spiciness of the pepper. But if you find that it's still not spicy enough, what we traditionally do is actually chop up more green chilies upon serving and then sprinkle some more on top. So I'm actually gonna just prepare these chilies now. Get them ready. Don't touch your face or eyes or anything afterwards when you work with green chilies, or what some people do is they put on some gloves and then chop them. I'm very much accustomed to working with chilies, so I know not to touch my face, but yeah, it happens. Tears coming to my eyes. Whew. Okay. Let's start frying. Salt. And we are actually going to add our green chilies to the onions and let them saute with it. Help impart more of a piquant flavor as well. Tip, if you don't already know this, cover the pan on a medium to low heat while the onions are sauteing. By covering it, you're adding moisture already in there from the steam, and it'll just help soften the onions a lot faster. Okay, so while that's frying away, let's quickly prepare our ginger and garlic. I can't seem to decide what level of light to keep these under counter lights on, so if you see changing throughout this shoot, that's why I can't seem to decide. Can't really do without them, because they do give off some light, but I don't need so much of it either. Ginger is going dry. It's hard to grate ginger when it's getting dry. Okay, I think we'll stop there. So I made an oopsie already. I didn't pay attention to my onions, and some of my onions burned. Some have caramelized, so I've just added some water to remove the burn bits off the bottom. I'm actually going to scoop out some of the onions, and we'll try to correct the course. I'm actually just going to chop up a shallot because it's small, and then a couple more peppers and pop them in there. Stuff like this happens. And when it happens, there's no point in freaking out. You can just easily course correct as long as you haven't burned anything too much. And I could tell from the smell that there isn't really any burning, which is great because that means it won't get a burnt taste in the dal, but there's a lot of caramelization. Now we're just going to let this saute or reduce down a bit, and then we're going to start adding in our spices. And for a little boost of flavor, I'm actually going to add some whole cumin as well. Sizzle, sizzle, it's frying. By adding the whole cumin seeds right in the beginning, you're letting the oil fry it and start to release some of its wonderful aromatic smell and flavor. You can put them as whole chunks or small chunks, but I like to grate it because I really don't like the texture of ginger and garlic in dishes. Okay, now I'm smelling. There's a change of smell where both the garlic and the ginger are frying gently. While that's frying, I'm actually going to add some coriander. Let that build with it. Good. See? Salvaged. And I'm going to take this tomato, cut it in half, and we're going to grate it in because I don't actually want the skin of the tomato in the dish. So, just the skin. There we go. That's going to start incorporating now. And what we're doing is basically building a gravy. I'm actually going to add a bit of, just a little bit of tomato paste into this. I'm not going to add a lot of it because I find this particular one is slightly sweeter. And I don't want this dish to be too sweet, but I want to get some red coloring in there. The other way you can add some more red coloring if you don't want to add more tomatoes is by adding in the Kashmiri chili powder, as it naturally will give off a very red color. Now what we're also going to add is some turmeric and the powder of the cumin. It's actually smelling really good. So now that the gravy is looking like this, we are going to then add in our lentils with the water and start stewing it down. Now that's going to cook for about, I don't know, we'll check in about 20-25 minutes, see what it's like. The way to check is to actually take a kernel of the lentil or dal and then just kind of crush it and see how it feels. If it doesn't quite crush, obviously it's not ready. If it crushes but it still feels a bit grainy, it's almost ready but not quite yet. But if it crushes and feels smooth and slightly creamy, then your lentil is done. Then you can decide if you want to have more liquid or less liquid. I'm actually feeling pretty hungry now. The lentil is still gonna be a while. Maybe that'll end up being dinner. I'm gonna eat now. We have some leftovers. Rob?
Yeah,
You want a slice of a leftover pizza
sure,
with a fried egg?
sure.
Almost done. What I'm also going to do is actually cut a piece of this lemon to squeeze on top, just to give it a bit of a tartness. And for folks who may have watched the previous video, I like a lot of coriander. Shall we give this a taste? I may have put a little too much, squeezed in a little too much lemon, but as this sits, the sourness will also temper down. Hope you enjoyed this little video, even though we had a bit of a blunder in the beginning, but as you can see, it was salvaged. There's no burnt taste at all in here. And hopefully we'll see you next week. A lot of these Indian food dishes and Pakistani dishes, there is no real recipe. You learn by watching someone, particularly your mother or your father. And the way that they give their directions, my mother will just go, she'll put it in her hand, she goes, this amount. She'll drop it. Okay, this amount, and she'll drop it. And I'm like, how much are you putting in? So it's always been about practicing, understanding the flavor, remembering that flavor, and then mimicking it, along with all the smell that you get from the dish as well. So this is how my mom cooks, this is how I've learned to cook from her. Don't forget to subscribe, like, hit the notification bell, all those little things you gotta do to help keep this channel going. All right, see you next time. This one turned out really good, Rob.
Oh, good. You should cook on Chana all the time. It seems to work better.
I think so.